Our lesson today is I will round multi-digit numbers to any place using the vertical number line. So lesson 7, we already started talking about rounding numbers to the thousands place. Today we're going to talk about rounding numbers to a place other than just the thousands place. So I want you to get out your math journal, and at the top I want you to write today's date, and then I want you to write lesson 8 : rounding, so that when you go back and look at it you'll know what lesson that's what. So whenever you're ready, press play and we'll get started. Okay, so today we're still using this vertical number line, and we're taking a look at the number 72,744. We're going to round it to the 10,000s place. So we're going to ask ourselves how many 10,000s are in 72,744. When I look at this number, there's a 7 in the 10,000s place. So that means that there are 70 thousands in 72,744. And then I'm going to say, what's one more 10,000? And that would be 80,000. And then I have to think about what would be the halfway point. When we were doing thousands, the halfway point was 500. But halfway between a 10,000 would be 5,000. So that's why the halfway point is 75,000. Alright, next we just need to think about where would we put 72,744 on the vertical number line. So if you're looking through here, you'd say, okay, well, here's 70,000, here's 75,000, my number is 72,000. So it would be in the lower half of a vertical number line. Therefore, 72,744 rounded to the nearest 10,000 would be 70,000. Okay, this time I want you to draw this vertical number line in your math journal, and then when you're ready, I want you to press play. Alright, so once you have this vertical number line drawn, now we're still rounding to the 10,000s place. So you'll notice that this number has 100,000 and a 10,000s. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, well, there's a 3 in the 10,000s place, so there would be 330 10,000s in this number. One more 10,000 would be 340 10,000s. My midway point would be 335,000. So make sure that you're labeling this with me. If you need to catch up, just press pause. Alright, so now we're ready to round this number. So we've got our vertical number line all labeled, and we just have to figure out where 337,601 would go on this vertical number line. Well, it's greater than 335,000, but it's less than 340,000. So it's going to go in the top part of a vertical number line. So when I get ready to round it to the nearest 10,000, I can say 337,601 rounded to the nearest 10,000 is 340,000. Make sure that you label this number on your vertical number line, and I want you to go ahead and write 337,601, and I want you to use those little scribble marks that we were using that looks like an equal sign, but it's not. The one that kind of looks like a wavy equal sign like this. I'm still getting used to this pen. And then I want you to write 340,000. You don't have to write all the other stuff that I wrote. Like, I don't expect you to write all of this stuff, but I do want you to write this in your journal. Okay, I have one more thing I want you to write in your journal today. Alright, I want you to go ahead and draw another vertical number line just like the one that you see here. And this time we're going to round this number to the 100,000. So I want you to pay really close attention and see that this does not say to the 10,000, it says to the 100,000s. So when I get ready to label my vertical number line, I'm looking at what's in the 100,000s place, and I see there's a 7. So that means that there are 700,000s in this number. One more 100,000 would be 800,000. So half of 100,000 would be 50,000. So the halfway point is 750,000. Okay, so now I'm ready to label 750,085 on my vertical number line. And let me get my pen feature going. And I'm just trying to think to myself, where would this go on the number line? And this is 70,000, this is 80,000, this is 750,000, and 749,000 is less than 750,000, so it would actually must be about right here on my number line. Whoop. Sorry, I'm still trying to get used to this little pen, so, okay. So 749,000 is going to be really close to 750,000, so it's going to be about right here. So it would round to 700,000, okay? At 8. And you'll notice that the directions say complete each statement by rounding the number to the given place value. Use a number line to show your work. So you're going to have to be really careful when you pay attention to the directions to make sure that you're rounding to the correct place. Alright, so this says round to the nearest 10,000s. So I'm going to look at the 10,000s and I see that there is a 5 in the 10,000s. So there are 50 10,000s and 53,000s. Again, please don't pay attention to my handwriting. One more 10,000 would be 60,000. Now you might be thinking to yourself 51,000, but that's another 1,000, not another 10,000, and this is a 0, by the way. Okay, so I'm thinking to myself, what would be halfway between? And what would be halfway between here is 55,000. So I'm looking at 53,000. I've got to decide, does it come in this lower portion here, or would it come in the top portion of my vertical number line? And actually, 53,000 is less than 55,000. So it would come in the lower part of our vertical number line. So 53,000 rounded to the nearest 10,000 would be 50,000. Okay, let's take a look at the next one. So this time it says round to the nearest 100,000. So there is a 2 in the 100,000s. So how many 100,000s are in this number? And the answer to that is there are 200,000. So I'm going to put 200,000, and then one more 100,000 would be 300,000. So halfway between 200,000 and 300,000 would be 250,000. So I'm thinking to myself, where would 240,000 go? Well, it's less than 250,000, so it would go here, 240,000. Remember, if I'm going too quickly, you can always pause the video and get caught up. Okay, so now I'm looking to see, is it closer to this 100,000 or this 100,000? So since it's below the halfway point, round to the nearest 100,000, this would be 240,000. So then I look at B. It says round to the nearest 10,000. So there are 4 10,000s. So 42,708, there are 4 10,000s or 40,000s. One more 10,000 would be 5 10,000s or 50,000. Midway point is 45,000. So on the number line, 42,708 is less than 45,000. So 42,708 rounded to the nearest 10,000 would be 40,000, because it's nearer to 40,000 than it is 50,000. Okay, back over here to B. I see now that I should have gone A, B, but I wasn't paying that much attention, was I? Alright, so I'm rounding to the nearest 100,000 again. There are 4 100,000s. One more 100,000 would be 5 100,000s. The midway point would be 450,000. Now 449,019 is really close to 450, but it is less than, so it would go in the lower portion of our number line, about right here. So it rounded, this number rounded to the nearest 100,000 would be 400,000. Okay. All right, let's take a look at the next page. Okay, 406,823 rounded to the nearest 10,000. I'm looking up here and there are no 10,000s. So to there are 40 10,000s, so that would be 400,000. One more 10,000 would not be 500,000. It would be 410,000, because remember, we're counting by 10,000s. And the midway point here would be 405,000. Now, 406,823 is greater than 405,000, so it would go up here, probably about right here. So round to the nearest 10,000, this number would be 410,000. All right, last one on this page. I want you to go ahead and try to do this one all by yourself, and then I want you to press play when you're ready to see the answer. Okay, there are 900,000s, so this is going to be 900,000. One more 100,000 would be 10,000,000. So remember, this is 1000. So if that's 10,000,000, I actually have to come back here and put a comma in, and it's actually 1,000,000. My halfway point is going to be 950,000, and 964,000 would be about right here on my vertical number line, because it's greater than 950,000. So 964,103 rounded to the nearest 100,000 would actually be 1,000,000. Okay, let's flip it over on the back. Okay, so now we're going to do some application problems. Remember, your first task here is to read the problem. So we have 975,462 songs were downloaded in one day. Round this number to the nearest 100,000. This is really important. To estimate how many songs were downloaded in one day, use a number line to show your work. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to draw my number line. Rounding to the nearest 100,000. So there are 900,000s in this number. One more 100,000 would be 10,000,000s, which would be 1,000,000. My halfway point would be 950,000. And 975,462 would actually be in the upper part of my number line. Excuse that mess right there. That says 462,000. So I can tell by my number line that it's nearer to 1,000,000. So my answer here would be, the question is, round this number to the nearest to estimate how many songs were downloaded in one day. So I'm going to use the word about to show that this is an estimate. About 1,000,000 songs were downloaded. And I could go ahead and add one in one day, but I don't have to. Okay, let's take a look at number 4. This number was rounded to the nearest 10,000. List the possible digits that could go in the thousands place to make this statement correct. So it's rounded to the nearest 10,000. So I'm looking, and if I had a vertical number line, because the first two digits are 13, that tells me that 130,000 would be the lower number on this number line. If this number was a 12 here, like 129,000, well then I would know that they rounded up to 130,000. But since the actual number begins with a 13, I know 130,000 had to be the least number. So now it's rounded to the nearest 10,000, so this would be 140,000. So I'm looking for a number that would be below this midway point. My midway point would be 135,000. Now if this number were a 5, this would have rounded up to 140,000. So that tells me that the only numbers that could be here would be a 1, a 2, a 3, or a 4. So if it was 131,000, 132,000, 133,000, or 134,000, it would go here. Okay? I want you to try to do the next problem all by yourself, and then I want you to press play. If you get stuck, you can always go ahead and press play to see what the answer is. Okay, this time it says estimate the difference by rounding. So again, the whole purpose of estimating is to make the math easier in your head. So for A, it says round to the nearest 10,000s. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to make a vertical number line. And I'm actually going to make 2 because I have 2 numbers here. And I'm going to round both of these numbers to the nearest 10,000. Okay, so 712,350 has 710 thousands. Notice when I get all these zeros, it's going to make the subtraction so much easier. One more 10,000 would be 720,000, and my halfway point is 715,000. So 712,000 is going to be right here in the middle. So that tells me that 712,350 rounds to 710,000. And then 342,802 has 340 thousands. One more 10,000 is 350,000. And my midway point is 345,000. Okay, so 342,000 would be down here. So I'm going to kind of squeeze this in. 342,802. So it's closer to 340,000. So to estimate the difference, I'm going to come over here and write my math problem. It would be 710,000 minus 340,000, which would be, let's see, 710 minus 340. If I added 60, that would get me to 400. So 60 plus 300 is 360, would be 370,000. I did a little bit of mental math there. If you needed to write it out long division or vertically, you certainly could. All right, so this time I'm going to round to the nearest 100,000, so I'm going to draw 2 more vertical number lines. Okay, so 712,350 has 700 thousands. One more 100,000 would be 800,000. And my halfway point is 750,000. So 712,000 is going to be way down here. So it rounds to 700,000. That's going to be a nice, easy number to subtract. And 342,000 has 300,000s. One more 100,000 would be 400,000. And my halfway point would be 350,000. So 342,000 is going to be down here. So it's going to round to 300,000. So this is going to be an easy subtraction problem here. So 700,000 minus 300,000 equals 400,000. So here's my answers, 400,000 and 700,000.